Let's talk supply chain. So, welcome to the show, Dave.
Hey, Sarah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, this is the third and final episode in our series with Gains. And, I've spoken to Bill and Jeff so far. We've talked about who Gains are, what you do, and also about decision making and risk. That one was very interesting. We did that in studio in Atlanta, which was super cool. But
Okay.
we also talked about making better decisions across your organization, what that should look like. And I've loved working with Gains, finding out the story. What is the motivation behind the brand? And also, talking to people within the organization and how they're thinking about supply chain and how you're making an impact in the industry. So I'm really excited for the conversation today and hear more of the insights into supply chain and some of the work that Gains is doing. So let's go out with a bang. Why don't we start with a bit of a background? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Gains.
Sure, Sarah, I appreciate it. So I've been in and around supply chain, gosh, you hate to date yourself, since the 90s. And it's funny that some of what is new is actually old. So many of the same topics and problems and challenges, and candidly, even technology that we've been talking about and using isn't
Right.
all that different than what it was back in the 90s. So I've had the opportunity to work at a number of very interesting and intriguing companies over the years, all in and around software, and joined Gains about 3 years ago. Took on the role of Chief Revenue Officer recently, about a year back now, took on the role of presidency, and off we go. It's been a great run. Candidly, without too much focus, Gains was this small, under the radar company that just did great work, served customers well, had extraordinarily happy customers. And when I took a look at this personally before I joined, I just saw tremendous people, tremendous resources, tremendous technology, and not a lot of commercial focus. So we've done a little bit more. We're going to focus on growing gradually, growing smart, growing with customers that want to expand with us. And we're still a little bit off the radar screen, but we're making a dent, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, and we're helping you to do that. And I'm
You are.
so grateful, that Gains and your team has decided to trust us with that because I think we've really been able to put out some good content. And today is going to be absolutely no different. And I can hear the passion in your voice. You say that you've been in the industry since the 90s. I've kind of been in the industry since the 90s too, because I can tell you I worked in the Vancouver branch when I was 16 in 1996. So it's crazy to think that we've been in this world of supply chain and how much has changed. And, we're going to be talking about technology investments today. And I think I feel like we talk about technology a lot, but I think people are still grappling with investing in technology. People want to invest, they want to try things out, but then they also don't want to be caught when it doesn't work. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, one of the things I struggle with is, candidly, the same conversations that were had in the 90s are still had today.
Oh,
What is my demand? What is my supply? How do I tie these things together? The labels have changed, the technology has changed. The PowerPoints haven't changed all that much. The stories haven't
right.
changed, but what has changed tremendously is the technology available to all of us.
Hmm.
So, at Gaines, we like to take a little bit of a different perspective. For example, we fall under the purview of the supply chain planning bucket in the world of the Gartner and the analysts out there.
Hmm.
But really, what do we help companies do? We help companies focus on decisions.
Right.
And the decisions that move their business, that make an impact in their business. And often enough, companies come to us with, I need a planning solution. I need to do the following 20 things. I need to solve all of these problems. And when you ask them a simple question, why? What is the impact? What will that drive? They stare at you. They
Mhm.
almost don't know the answer to those questions. And that's, as a vendor that's been working in this market for many, many years, and as an
Mhm.
individual who's seen transformation, who's seen massive projects, failures, successes, and everywhere in between, it's a little bit disheartening to still hear that all these years later, people don't necessarily know why they need to make these investments in technology. So
Yeah.
at Gains, a big part of our role is to understand our clients, to really get to the DNA of what makes their business succeed, and hopefully help them navigate to focusing on the appropriate decisions at the appropriate time to drive impact in their business.
Well, and we're going to talk about that, but let's talk about the disconnect that's happening right now. So, in the research leading up to this episode, we looked at a PwC study, and that showed that 83% of executives say supply chain technology investments haven't fully delivered the expected results. Now, this is a huge red flag. And I think, when a lot of supply chain professionals, leaders, teams look at using new technology or look at technology partners in general, they've been through this. They've been there, they've done that. And so there's a disconnect between the market and what technology firms are providing. Now, what's happening with that? Is it just because, supply chain leaders are overwhelmed, or is it because they don't really understand the technology that they need? Or maybe they're choosing a technology that they think is going to help and then maybe it doesn't. But I think right now, a lot of supply chain leaders and teams are feeling very overwhelmed and kind of like it's a lost leader. Like they just don't know where to go and how to do it.
Yeah, everybody talks about COVID and pre-COVID and post-COVID and
Yeah.
the impact that that's had. And so what we saw during COVID is all of a sudden supply chain became very important. Everyone's
Mhm.
talked about this at length, and budgets presented themselves. And
Right.
so all of these class of problems that people have been trying to solve for all of these years, all of a sudden became, here's a budget, you need to go solve this. And companies, rather than getting back to the question I brought up a little bit earlier around what decisions should we focus on, where is the area in my business that if I affect the performance here, it will improve the outcome of my business? What companies did is they just went out and said, I need a planning technology. I need visibility technology. I need this technology. I need that technology. And worst of all, they trusted and said to the marketplace, you know what, I'm going to buy all these disparate things and you can tie them together for me and this will solve my problems. So part of this is the vendors. We're culpable in this exercise.
Right.
We take these visions, we talk about transformation, but we really don't talk about how that company is unique, how there's an opportunity to move that needle. So when I look at that statistic and that PwC report, I think it was about a year ago, it really echoes with me. When 83% of executives say that their investments are not delivering the outcomes that they deserve, the first thing we need to ask ourselves as participants in the ecosystem is how do we improve? How do we sit down and make sure that we focus on results, that we focus on outcomes, that we focus on meaningful impact to our client's business, whether we're a consulting company, a software company, a client
Mhm.
themselves. And to answer your simple question, yes, they're all overwhelmed. And by the way, we were overwhelmed before COVID. So
Oh,
I
that's
love how
true.
everybody talks about COVID, but this business has had its set of challenges. Complexity is the new norm. And I really get a kick out of people sort of running away from the concept of complexity. And as a vendor, it's our responsibility not just to discuss the path towards simplifying your business and narrowing your product line and being really, really good at what you're good at. It's
Mhm.
it's talking about embracing complexity,
Yeah.
embracing all the variability out there. With today's technology, there's a lot of opportunity to expand the ecosystem of partners you can work with instead of contract. There's the
Yeah.
ability to share information. There's the ability to make your supply chain partners healthier. And I'm not so sure that as vendors, we've done a great job of sitting down with our customers, understanding their business and trying to prescribe to their business as much as we've gone out and sold a vision and said, here, come make this
Right.
investment. So,
Yeah.
we're all a bit culpable here, and I think we're trying to get better, but I do think that there's a different way to do it.
Well, and from what I'm hearing from you, there's so much variables, there's so many people involved. Some technology is good for some folks, some other technology is good for them as well. And what I have been talking to a few people over the last year or so that I don't feel that we talk enough about is almost like a testing environment. And I've heard about it in larger companies where they have the budget and they have the people and that they can have a testing environment and they can bring in all sorts of technology and they can test it and they can break it, and they can figure out what is right for them. But I almost feel like we need to, and I always say collaboration is the future of business. We need to come together, right? As vendors and as buyers of the technology and the platform and really provide that testing environment. Would you agree with that?
In a way, I think that small companies in particular, because we work with companies that are in the sub $100 million range, all the
Okay.
way to companies that are 15, $20 billion. And
Mm.
what you see with the smaller companies, it's they don't have the time, the capacity, the people, the know-how,
Fair point.
even if they wanted to test of what to test. And this goes back, and I know I've been belaboring this point in our short conversation already, but we try to really sit down with customers and understand who they are, what motivates them, what are the opportunities within their respective supply chains to
Hmm.
impact a small detail, improve a piece of the business, whether
Right.
it's product availability, whether it's time to market, whether it's inventory position, whether it's demand prediction. What is the value of demand prediction? And okay, I understand my demand. Well, people come to me all the time and say, I'd like to understand, I need to have a better demand prediction. And the
Right.
first question I ask is, okay, why? What are you trying to accomplish? What would you like to do? And if we can get to the core of what the folks are trying to accomplish, and we can help them attack one decision, and that one decision, that one improvement, that can be their testing ground, back
Yeah.
to the question you asked a moment ago, then all of a sudden we create value. And
Right.
when you create value, the ability to create additional value and create more value, and by
Yeah.
the way, identify value that even me as the vendor, if I don't fit that gap, quite potentially I can direct the client towards the next
Mm.
opportunity they have. That opportunity does not have to be with me.
I like to hear that.
I think that's a responsibility we have to the marketplace, because if I create value and I create impact and customers achieve outcomes, and they do that in an incremental yet transformational approach,
Yeah.
I think that's a great recipe. One comment there that I'll go off for a moment. Transformation has been portrayed as big projects, long periods of time, lots of money, massive initiatives, generally speaking, big partner relationships, big deployments of big technology.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't.
Transformation can be bitten off. It's the old analogy of, bite off the elephant one bite at a time. You can attack transformation by improving your business one bite at a time. And as a vendor, it's our job and responsibility to help identify if we're the right vendor if we're the right fit for a client, and what
Yeah.
bites we would recommend. And then candidly, it's also our responsibility to go to the client and maybe share with them what they don't see in their own business, because we learn quite a
True.
bit about our customers along the way.
Yeah.
And I think often we learn more about their businesses than they may see on their own, because their people aren't always telling the truth.
Well, and seeing the gaps, but not only that, but also putting it into perspective and priority. And I think that sparks the discussion that you can have with the client where they think maybe the priority is over here. And after having that discussion and doing more of a bit of a deep dive, you might go back to them and say, well, actually, we think that your priority is over here. And because of, you know, this, and this.
Sure. And
And
well, if you
so,
think about that, to your point, they have a priority, and that priority is critical. And that's why we're there. That's why we're having the conversation. And maybe I don't change their priority, but maybe what I do as I'm looking into that, as I'm investigating that, I do a simple 2x2 matrix of, easy to achieve,
mhm,
high value, towards difficult to achieve, low value. And I
mhm,
look at, well, what capabilities could we do? What things could we impact along the way to achieving their vision? I don't want to discount that vision. I don't want to discount what's important to them, but to achieving that vision, but getting some incremental value along the way. And what if I spent 1 month doing something instead of 9 months? What if I immediately got to an ROI? And what if I use that ROI to help those people fund those projects and to keep going?
mhm.
And it's just a different way of thinking. Incrementalism, is an approach that's been out there for a long time, but I think transformation and incrementalism can coexist.
Well, and I think there are some, truths out there that supply chain professionals kind of hold dear, right? So let's debunk some of those.
Okay.
I think some of the professionals say desperately seeking certainty is a false idol. What would you say to
Oh,
that?
yeah. So, certainty. What does certainty mean? In the world.
Now we're getting philosophical.
Yeah, in the world of uncertainty that we live in, so we use a term, and it's a pretty commonly understood term in the industry. It's VUCA. It's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That's the world that supply chain professionals live in today. So back to the demand discussion we were having a little bit earlier, you hear a tremendous amount of focus of getting into exactly the right demand prediction. Well, the world doesn't work that way. The
Right.
world works in a range of variable outcomes. A lot of different things can happen to my demand, to my supply, to my network, to my customers. And understanding the portfolio of decisions that could happen and that need to occur, and planning for that range of outcomes. And then when the outcomes occur, the big message point the market has been bringing from a technology perspective is listen to the signals, get the real-time information, use the real-time information to readjust your plan. Well, what if you just plan for uncertainty? What if you plan for complexity? What if you already built that into your plan? And it goes back to your desperately seeking certainty.
Right.
It is a cycle. First off, you're never going to get there because
Mhm.
you may be able to predict the most perfect things in the world. And by the way, then they change. And as we
Right.
know, our world changes constantly. And I think the past of trying to get to certainty
Mhm.
is a false idol. I firmly agree with that.
Absolutely. Now, the second one that everybody says is no company has one supply chain.
Oh gosh, yeah. From a gains perspective, we try to treat that. I think it ties into the decisioning discussion that we've been having so far. Really spending time to understand the DNA of a company, what drives them, what are the unique differentiators by how they win, what they produce, how they distribute, how they serve, et cetera, and satisfying those through focused technology investments. And so while you'll hear as a vendor, we focus on delivering the same technology to the smallest companies in the world and to the largest companies in the world and having accessibility to those solutions. Even with our smallest clients, we really have to understand what are the drivers in their business.
Mhm.
And if I'm solving a certain class and type of problem, the combination of operations research knowledge, data science knowledge, algorithms, everybody says machine learning. Well, sometimes machine learning is appropriate. It's a
Right.
tool. Sometimes it's not appropriate. So
Mhm.
understanding the combination of tools, data, expertise, back to the core question, I think that really talks to the fact that, everyone's a little different. I can treat everyone different, but I still should operate within a common framework of technology along the way.
Yeah, that's so true. And everybody, I mean, everybody has different components to their supply chain, right? They have different nuances. They might source from different places than somebody else. But at the end of the day, supply chain can be and is kind of the similar thing. There's just different components to each side. And then
Yeah.
the next one is there are no right answers.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think we've leaned on this a little bit already. I mean, this goes back to certainty and predictability and exacting. They're just software and systems can no longer provide perfect prediction. What
Mhm.
you try to do is you try to get a range of outcomes in the business. You try to understand how the business will react to those range of outcomes. The old days of saying, last Thursday performed this way, and next Thursday at 3 o'clock is going to perform that way. Those days are gone. So
They are.
how do I take all of these different range of outcomes? How do I take all of my hundreds of thousands of right answers
Mhm.
and just create a framework and a capability leveraging technology to be able to, as you go through the operation of the business, as your customers consume your products, to adapt and to change and to edit and to maintain and to be able to take the information and planning that you have and to execute. And really to execute with a plan in advance rather than try to always be perfect. Because this quest of perfection will lead to constant frustration.
Yes, it's a journey or it's progress. It's not perfection. I mean, I think too many times, even in our personal lives, we try to strive for that. And we got to remember it's a journey. And this one kind of goes into the last one. One size doesn't fit all. I mean, do we really believe that? And is that a truth?
Yeah, I think in our business and having been in enterprise software since the early 90s, I think it's very appropriate that vendors try to take an approach that here's our vision, here's our approach, here's what we
Mm,
do, and here's how that fits your business.
mhm.
And of course at Gains we do some of that. But we really look at, all of the different capabilities, skills, knowledge, wherewithal. And if you look at current modern technology today and you say, I have access to more solvers, more solving technology than ever before.
Mhm.
I have access to, more data than ever before. So how do I take the decision that I'm trying to impact, the tools and capabilities available to us, and how do I compose and deliver solutions in a very effective manner that fits that company at that time, at that size?
Right.
And not only, it's not just size related. I'll, for example, I was just earlier this week, I was on the phone with about a $15 billion consumer goods company that has a tremendous inventory challenge and an opportunity that's born of that. And what came out of that discussion is that the team is struggling with adoption. The team is
Mm.
struggling not with technology adoption, with the fact that they've made these decisions a certain way, candidly, on the back of napkins and a little bit of Excel for the last 15 years. And so
Napkins.
how do they take a technology that might very well work for a 5-man operation, deploy it to a 200-man operation, and have it fit to what they want and need?
Right.
And so the way we've done that and attacked that problem a little bit is just look at the problem set, work our way backwards, look at all of the skills, knowledge, wherewithal, and tools available to us, and compose solutions that help customers drive those outcomes. And
Yeah.
this goes back to outcomes and focus and decisioning. Just really believe that focusing in on one decision that can really make an impact in your organization, and then using that positive energy to drive further transformation,
Mm.
not only from an economic perspective and a vendor perspective, but candidly from a change management perspective.
Yeah.
We believe that ties back to that 83% you talked about a little bit
Mhm.
earlier, because that's a model for success. That's a
Yeah.
model that I succeed, I get the team to buy into that success, I
Mhm.
do it again, and all of a sudden I built upon that over time, and I'm composing these solutions to solve these problems, and now I have success, whatever the definition of that is.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it also goes down to picking the right vendor and making sure that when you are working with that technology partner, that they can evolve with you. So when it says, one size can't fit all, well, maybe not in the beginning because your priorities might be different than where they're going to be in 2 to 3 years, maybe even 5 years. And so you want to work with somebody who can actually evolve with that growth and even some of those changes. I mean, we all know there's disruption in supply chain and that's not going anywhere. So the last one is every company deserves access to world-class software.
sure, yeah, we firmly believe this. So if I look at our largest customers and our smallest customers and every bit in between, every company has the same set of challenges.
Mhm.
For some it's growth, for some it's cost savings, for some it's inefficiency, for some it's scale. But people generally have the same classes of problems, whether I'm a 2-man shop, a 5-man shop,
Mhm.
a 5,000 person shop. Supply chain organizations we have, they're trying to predict, they're trying to deliver, they're trying to plan, they're trying to manage, and they're trying to deal with all of the uncertainty
Mhm.
each and every single day. So, at Gains, we've taken the approach that while we have accessibility to, all of the cutting edge algorithms and capabilities and functions that any company might want to solve their class of problems, I want to make that same exact solution that can be delivered to the greatest and most complex companies in the world accessible to the smallest. And we've done a really good job of doing that in a singular platform. And it's a big part of everything we do. When we make decisions about where we invest and we talk about solving complex problems, one of the first things we do is say, what would happen for our $70 million client
Right.
versus our $70 billion client? How would they absorb this? Could they use this? And how of course, do we pre-package these solutions to
Yeah.
make them more accessible?
Yeah. I love that because we all need to take a look at the different organizations that are going to use some of our software as a vendor partner, right? Or a technology partner. And what does that look like throughout the evolution? Because you want to be with them and you want to grow with them, you want to evolve, you want to help solve some of those disruptions that they're going to see along the way as well. Now, Gaines has defined a new principle in supply chain. It's called
Okay.
decision engineering.
Decision engineering, sure.
And you also, Gaines uses all these different um, uh, like words, because I remember talking on the last episode and hearing some of those words that you've kind of made up internally, but that totally makes sense. So one of them is decision engineering and the other one is composability. So can you
Yep.
talk about both of those? What do they actually mean and how are they relevant to supply chains right now?
Yeah. So the irony is that these are concepts that exist in the marketplace and have for a little bit of a while, but
Okay.
I think we've embraced them here at Gaines quite a bit. The idea of decision engineering is really, really simple. We want to spend time with you. We want to understand your business. We want to peel the layers off the onion and get to the core of the problem. In all candor, you may have an RFI and an RFP. We may participate in that. We may not. We'd really like to understand your business. We'd like to dig in and learn as much as possible, and through that learning go back to that simple 2x2 matrix. Where can we drive decisions that drive the highest value outcome at the least amount of effort along the journey to whatever your effort might very well be. And in order to do that, then what you need to do is look at all of the capabilities that a vendor may have, but compose a solution specifically towards that requirement. So what we deliver is an out-of-the-box platform called the Gains Performance Platform that allows companies to have access to different algorithms, different capabilities, different answers, different solvers. They come in pre-composed applications that allow for things like demand, supply, production, capacity, inventory. We're particularly well known where companies that have challenges where inventory is impactful. But how do I look at the business problem that I'm trying to solve and the company that I am and the needs that I have and the team that I have, and compose a very specific set of solutions in a commonly understood product set, and then later allows me to equally address other areas. I'll give you an example. We have a long-term customer that's been with us almost 20 years. They're a distribution, actually at least 20 years now. They're a distribution company.
That's great.
They started off with us, when things like machine learning and AI weren't terms.
Yeah.
Algorithms were terms, but machine learning and AI weren't. And so today, one of the things we're doing with them is we're trying to help them mature their range of demand predictions so that they can better plan for their appropriate amount of inventory.
Okay.
So the way we're doing that is we're continuing to use commonly understood tools in a composed application for demand planning. But we're also leveraging in machine learning and looking at external variables and improving the demand output. Equally, we're taking that exact same technology and composing a different application around things such as lead time indication. How do I more appropriately predict my lead time of my products to my facilities, which then therefore ties into my inventory positioning? So how do we use, all the skills and capabilities that are available to us today, compose those with the tools and the solutions and the approaches that have been done in the past, and look at the company's challenges and continually improve upon those challenges? Do I have to buy it all at once? Can I consume it in a Lego brick type approach and compose and build my houses and add a room as I need to? That's sort of the viewpoint we have. So when we talk about composability, we're really talking about meeting the customers where they are, stretching them a little bit, constantly innovating, pushing them just a little bit more to tackle the next project. And again, back to this theme I've been using over and over again, transforming along the way. So luckily, it's been a tremendous run for us over the last few years. The business is growing. Candidly, we're growing in a very, I want to say, predictable and methodical approach. We're not going to take on too much business. We're busy. We have the opportunity where we somewhat get to choose who we work with. And what we look for is we look for companies that are a good fit. And candidly, we look for companies that have maybe failed deploying other technologies that fall into that 83%. That if they were to just go get a win and another win and another win and another win, they might be really, really happy with that. And all of a sudden they wake up and they're transformed and they didn't even know what happened.
Yeah, and build on that. Now, I want to build on that example that you gave because, I feel like we are talking about different ways that we can work with technology partners. And I think about me as a consumer. And so recently I've gone out, I've done some shopping, and shelves are empty. And so if they have the right software that they're working with that can give them the right information and the tools to be able to do that prediction, and they are the only product on that shelf. At that time that that shelf is empty, there's your competitive advantage from a supply chain.
Yeah, I took my daughter to the mall about a week ago. It was after the holidays. She's 15 years old, and she's shopping for jeans. And at that age, it's nearly impossible to shop for jeans. And so I won't mention the stores out of respect for certain brands, but we went into the favorite store and the favorite jean that she wanted, and they didn't have it. And she got on her phone and looked at it and saw it was online. But then she walked to the second favorite store and they had the jean that wasn't exactly what she wanted, but she wanted it right there and right then, so she bought it. And she paid a little bit more at the second store for the product that she didn't really want as much as the one that wasn't in the store next door
Right.
that she could have ordered and had at the house in 2 days. So
Right.
what you just described actually still really matters in this world.
It
And
does.
it's regardless of industry, regardless of scope, I think that story is pretty applicable. The right
Yeah.
product and the right price and the right quantity at the right time. But by the way, you can't break your business. You can't this not every company is a pharmaceutical with the kind of margins on those products that others see. You really have to consider, are you planning appropriately to ensure that you don't miss as many stockouts as you possibly can, capitalize as much revenue as you can, but at the same time, don't overload your company with excessive carrying costs. And
Yeah.
so
So let's also talk about how Gaines is equipped to lead the market in a new direction. Right. I've
yeah,
spoken to a couple of people from the organizations over the last couple of episodes, and they bring so much experience, right? Along with yourself, right? Decades in the industry, decades in supply chain technology, really seeing how things have evolved and how things have changed. But now we're seeing some new AI providers, right? AI is kind of like that shiny new
yeah,
object. But I want to focus on how you're able to lead the market in a new direction with that deep domain experience that you
sure.
bring to the table as Gains. Now, I'm going to just veer off for just 1 second, because from a cyber technology or cyber security standpoint, when we think about tribal knowledge, that's super important right now, because if anything were to happen from a cybersecurity perspective, you need the tribal knowledge on hand so that when you go manual, somebody knows what they're
Yeah.
doing,
You
right?
know what
Because
to
right
do.
now we're so dependent on technology. So I
Yeah.
wanted to just sort of plant that seed as we go into that next question about how you lead a new direction for the market,
Yeah.
against some of these AI, and how that deep tribal knowledge is sort of invaluable.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I mean, we do believe it's a tremendous differentiator for our business. I mean, when I go into a discussion with a customer, I can bring 4 or 5 people that have spent 20, 30 years in industry solving these classes of problems using different tools available to them at this time. And you brought up a very specific point a few moments ago. There's all different types of vendors, as there always have been. These days it's all about AI and ML, and it's solving every single problem. And there really is a class of separate problems out there and different tools and capabilities that having the team that has seen this before, that understands the combination of somewhat old, somewhat new, somewhat cutting edge, somewhat tried and true, and understands the class of problems. So, for example, without going through the specifics of a use case for a customer, it would be very normal for us to see a very traditional OR driven approach combined with machine learning, combined with a bit of cutting edge AI, combined with traditional collaboration to get to an outcome and an answer. And too often and too much, vendors are going out and saying, you need to do it this way. This is the best way. And as a vendor, it's our job to embrace all of the methods and all of the approaches and sit down and really understand our clients' needs and drive to outcomes based on, that goes back to the composability you mentioned a little bit earlier. And we think that's why we're different. So, you started this with, a little bit around, what does Gains bring to the marketplace and how are we a little bit different? We really do take a very high degree of pride in our team's experience, expertise. For example, there's a gentleman I believe you interviewed recently, Jeff Matersky.
Yeah.
Jeff is on his 5th wave of supply chain design technology, which is an area in which we help clients through what I would call network design. There's a whole bunch of vendors out there right now doing network design exactly the same way as it's been done for the last 30 years. And don't get me wrong, there's some validity there, but there's also opportunities to take that experience, tie it in with new technologies, and get to the same questions we were trying to answer previously in new ways. So we actually very firmly believe that that experience, that know-how, that people that have been there and done that before, yet understand new and modern and techniques and can merge these together, is a differentiator. In all candor, it's a differentiator in the selling cycle, but it's most importantly in the implementation. And this goes back to why, why do 83% of companies view these as I guess, not achieving the value they expected? I think that often enough, we take technology, we throw it over the fence and say, go implement this. The people implementing it really don't understand what they're throwing in, other than they're putting in a piece of technology that does a certain thing. And we need to get back to the cores of what are the business problems we're focused on? What are all of the available technologies and tools out there to solve these types of problems? And how do we go do it?
Well, and what you're talking about is exactly what your customer's going through. They've
Yes.
got the tribal knowledge. They're looking at the technology. They're trying to answer the questions within their teams. And some of them are actually taking it to another level where there's reverse mentoring, where you're actually taking those with the tribal knowledge and putting them with maybe the next generation that are part of their teams to talk about, how do you think about things? How do you ask the questions? What is your why? How do you think about technology and why do you think this one would work for us? And vice versa. So you get the tribal knowledge being exchanged, but then you also get the new and innovative conversation and exchanged as well, which I think is absolutely crucial. But the one really cool part of that is that the vendor and the technology partner are going through the exact same thing as
Yep.
a supply chain team and leaders and the people on that team as well, which is so cool because I think at the end of the day, we're all trying to navigate this. We're all trying to make it better. We know how good this industry is. We know how vital and life-saving this industry is. And we're all trying to achieve those outcomes, but in variety of different ways and empowering and supporting each other to do that. So I love
Yeah,
that.
Sarah, I want to emphasize a point you just made because,
Sure.
especially when you've been around supply chain for a while, it's our job to look to the next generations and to ensure that the learnings we passed on that have value, some of them do, many of them don't, but some of them,
Not
that
that it's always been done this way.
yeah, not that it's always been done this way, but that we're able to pass that on, that we're able to look at new and modern technology, but also old and past, but not just technology, but look around and say, have we left this ecosystem in a better place than when we got here? And I look at people like Jeff and Bill Benton, who's our co-founder, and many other members of the team. Recently, we had Amber Sally join us. We're ecstatic to have her join us. And I look at folks that really want to leave behind a legacy, not just of technology, but make a difference. And make a difference by leaving behind a legacy of people and culture and focus and really caring about supply chain. Because we do, supply chain for many, many years has delivered the food, the products, the support. I mean, the world
Medicine.
saw what happens when supply chain breaks down during COVID. And, it's shined a new light on our industry. It's now a boardroom conversation where for many years it was sort of a little bit of an afterthought in many businesses. And it's our job to help bring the next generation along the way and to empower that generation through tools, technology, process, knowledge, and wherewithal. But
Yeah.
most importantly, just with mentoring and being there. And,
Love that.
it's great. It's great to be in this market these days. It's great to see the focus. I'm a little bit worried about a little bit too much vendor speak out there, but we're all going to do our best and try to improve the outcomes for all of our clients.
Yeah.
And off we go.
Love that. So what's one thing that you're excited about for 2024? And we'll end there.
Who is that, a personal or professional conversation? The personal one's easy. I'll leave it alone. But professionally, I think the one thing is that from a gains perspective, we're seeing a tremendous validation of the work we put in, and
Awesome.
people here hold a lot of pride in what we do. In particular, we have a number of clients that have other planning systems, that have other ERP systems. And our ability to work with those solutions and drive value and get to impact and take that impact and drive to the next and to the next and the next, that's invigorating as a vendor. When you're, success is contagious.
It
And
totally is.
it really is, and it's fun, and it's exciting, and it empowers our team, it enlivens our clients, and it drives momentum. So what I'm most excited about is just continuing to focus in and hone in on that success and to making a difference. And hopefully in the long run, we'll all leave behind a little bit of a better legacy than what we got into.
I think supply chain is contagious. Anyways, so the last decade has demonstrated that the strength and stability of our global economy hinges on the resilience of supply chains. And as supply chain complexity exploded, the need for a more flexible, agile approach, one that delivers continuous incremental improvements, has become clear. Gaines recognized the need for a new kind of technology, so they built it. Focused on delivering outcomes, not software, Gaines delivers rapid results everywhere inventory matters. If you want to find out more, you can check them out at gainsystems.com. And did you have a guess at today's big question? Well, at the top of the show, I asked you, according to a 2021 study by McKinsey, what percentage of digital transformation projects fail? Well, it's a huge 69%. Now, who is shocked by that? I think I am, and probably a lot of people out there. So perhaps it's time for your organization to ditch the big transformations and focus on results driven continuous improvement, just like Gaines. Well, Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. And thanks again to the team at Gaines for making this episode happen. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you so much, Sarah.